Hi everyone, this is Evans Nicholson from ServiceNow Technical Marketing. Now today I'm going to talk to you about how we can gain business context quickly to drive outcomes. Specifically, we're talking about across ITSM and ITOM, the services and operations teams. But first, let's talk about some of the problems that modern infrastructure engineers and organizations face today. Lack of service, application, or infrastructure context. What does that mean? I know I'm not the only one who's rebooted a server thinking it was safe because it is a quote-unquote test environment. Things are very complicated these days, and without communication and without documenting what is on what server, etc., it's easy for this to happen. And yeah, we're still talking about siloed work streams and disparate tools. A lot of times the services and operations teams already work together, but if they don't have the same tool or the same workspace, it's hard for them to actually communicate and work together efficiently. Context switching slows productivity and momentum. You've probably all heard you can't really do two things at one time. You're actually quickly context switching between them. And that's what happens when you're in a ticket and you need to go over to your email or your chat and contact the operations engineer to talk about something. You lose focus. And then finally, high touch and complicated Cmdb management. For services and operations teams, managing the Cmdb, running discovery, getting the CIs into the Cmdb should not be the majority of their jobs, right? They have other things to do. You shouldn't spend your time managing the tool, right? That's not your job. The tool is to help you do your job. The tool is not your job. So that is a challenge that we face today still. So those are the challenges. Let's talk about how ServiceNow can help. ServiceNow helps automate and optimize technology service operations. We can do that through a number of different ways, but in the essence of time, I'm going to talk about 4 specific ways we can do that in this video today. I'm going to talk about Service Operations Workspace, Experts on Call, and then knowledge base articles. From the Service Operations Workspace, teams can view a tailored list of knowledge base articles which are applicable in certain situations. And then finally, service mapping. Now, I'm not going to show how you set up service mapping, but this is really the star of the show because of service mapping, ML-based service mapping in particular, we're able to prevent an issue in a production environment by seeing how things are connected. Now we're going to see this through the eyes of Lakshmi. Lakshmi is on the services team and she's opened up Service Operations Workspace. She can see her team's view here or team's work, but let's filter this down to what she needs to do. And you can see we've got a ticket down here on PeopleSoft development. So if we open this up, we can see in the details or the summary, performance issues seen in the development environment. They think the database is the issue. Now they want to reboot this database server, do some troubleshooting. So Lakshmi is going to first check and make sure there's no impacted services or CIs that are going to be a problem when they do this work. So we're seeing this through visibility and service mapping. At the bottom, you can see, Lakshmi can see PeopleSoft Dev. That makes sense that this SQL Server is associated with that. But then she sees Trade. Trade is actually a mission-critical application for Lakshmi's organization. So that's a big deal that this seemingly development SQL Server is associated with not only the development environment, but a production environment. So she's going to come back and reach out to the expert on call, the operations team in a minute. But let's first talk about troubleshooting and getting this SQL Server fixed up. So I'm going to open up Agent Assist. Now this is going to bring up a bunch of KB articles related to what we're seeing here in the summary and the CI, things like that. So this is a curated list of knowledge base articles that might be helpful in this situation. And the first one we see is a Health Log Analytics KB article. And that's nice because that's actually an ITOM piece. Health Log Analytics is ITOM. So we're seeing cross-pollination here, little ITOM coming into the ITSM view on Service Operations Workspace. Now this KB article talks about how we can see that SQL Server performance counters are disabled. We can see that through the logs. This is a great start, right? So we should enable those performance counters while we're troubleshooting. So I'm going to attach this to the article and put in a little note about what we're going to do. Now, I'm not going to do this in the interest of time, but here's the Experts on Call link. If I open this up, it'll open up who's on call from the operations team. That's a great way to open up a dialogue. You can actually start a Microsoft Teams chat right from here because of our Teams integration. So Lakshmi can reach out to the operations person on call and say, hey, we're going to work on this development server, but it's associated with trade, so we need to proceed with caution. But let's go back over and I'm going to show you one more thing about how we can visually see the representation of this service mapping. So I'm going to go into this configuration item. This is the SQL Server. I'm going to open up Dependency View. And you'll visually see how this is related. Here's the SQL Server. If I go into details, we can get a little bit more specific and look at services. And I'll show you trade. So here's the way trade is, the whole trade service application is related to this SQL Server. It's visually shown here for you. And then we can, if I click on Dev, PeopleSoft Dev, we can see the development, this PeopleSoft Dev service application and how that's related to the SQL Server. All right, there's one more thing I want to talk about before we go. If you're interested in ML-based service mapping, check out the Application Services Readiness page right here. There's some prerequisites you need to do in order to get that going. You can get this through using the Service Mapping Plus app on the App Store. So if you're interested in ML-based service mapping, check that out. Check out the Service Readiness page and get going. So let's briefly review the benefits of Service Operations Workspace. This Next Experience Workspace is configurable, and you can do that through UI Builder. But what we saw is an out-of-the-box experience, which enables seamless collaboration between services and operations. Service Operations Workspace makes it easier to transition into contacting experts on call, starting collaboration, or accessing knowledge base articles. And then you get instant understanding of business context by knowing and visualizing application or CI relationships. This is service mapping. We saw the results of service mapping, not necessarily how to set it up, but you can see how powerful this is when gaining business context into what you're about to do or something you're troubleshooting. And speaking of service mapping, let's go over the benefits of service mapping. Teams can get situational awareness by seeing how different applications and infrastructure is dependent on each other. And then ML-based service mapping, as opposed to top-down or tag-based, intelligently finds those not-so-obvious application relationships and then can give suggestions on updating service mapping based on those findings. And finally, service mapping eases the burden of gathering configuration data and Cmdb management. Remember, service operations teams are not in the business of Cmdb management or discovery or spending a lot of time managing the tool. The tool is not their job. Their job is to use the tool. So let's not get in the way of that. Service mapping and ML-based service mapping especially is a great way to quickly get accurate Cmdb data and visibility into how things are interconnected. For more information on service mapping or Service Operations Workspace, check out the Technology Excellence page here. Or for all things ITOM, check out the main product page. Thanks a lot, and I hope to talk to you soon.